Welcome to Training Transformers, brought to you by Kitaboo. I'm your host Tejas, and this is where we dive deep into the evolving world of learning and development with the industry's most innovative minds. In each episode, we sit down with some visionary L&D and training leaders who are reshaping how organizations approach their learning, development, and knowledge transfer in a very rapidly changing digital ecosystem. So, from emerging technologies to proven methodologies, we explore the strategies and insights that are transforming your workplace learning. Today, we have a very special expert of learning and development with us, Somya Dwivedi-Burks. Somya works at the intersection of learning design, performance improvement, and employee experience. She's a learning strategy consultant at heart, and she has served a diverse portfolio of organizations supporting the L&D functions. She's passionate about knowledge sharing. So coming on a podcast like this or writing about L&D comes very, very naturally to her. So we'll be discussing with her, firstly, her L&D journey, uh, content creation strategies for L&D and training professionals, how to measure your training ROI goals, and how to use your AI in your overall L&D tech ecosystem. So welcome to the show, Soumya.
Thank you. Thanks, Tejas.
Really glad to have you here. So, Soumya, before we dive into the depths of the insights that you're going to provide us, I'd love to first hear about your journey. Like, what drew you to this unique space where learning is meeting your strategic organizational development?
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Tejas, for the opportunity to come and share a little bit about L&D and what got me into L&D and all the other wonderful topics we're going to touch upon today. So my journey into L&D space has been from the higher education, and I worked in the higher education space, and actually was interested in learning, not more than the subject matter, but how people learn. And so I continued to develop myself in that field. And then from learning in the academic background, I transitioned into how do people learn in a workplace? What are those motivations? Because the difference is that, in an academic institution, at the end of the learning journey, you get a degree, you graduate. What does a person in an office has to get in order to that motivation to learn or click on learning? And that got me into this space. And for several years, I worked as a learning consultant, worked with various sized industries and various size organizations, and touched upon various domains within the L&D, L&D business units as well. So yeah, so I think that it was gradual, the evolution was gradual, and I absolutely love working in this intersection.
That's great to hear that. I guess even you're someone who has fallen into L&D, as they say that L&D chooses the person, not you. But it's interesting that you actually transition from an education space, which most of the L&D leaders also do, and then got into corporate learning. So we are living in a world of information overload, where creating a very compelling learning content strategy is going to take a lot of manual intervention, as well as because it's both an art as well as a science. So walk me through how you and your team right now is trying to develop, curate, or even execute a training content strategy that is truly engaging and transforming your employee capability.
That's such a great question, Tejas. And as you were mentioning, that how we are all surrounded or drowning in the information overload. And the same goes for content as well. And there is so much content out there that our principle is to stick to less is more, and almost don't create content that is not existing, because go and curate content which actually might be present already, may be present in a much better quality that you can ever produce. And so less is more, that's number one. And then the second one is, the why behind the content. And the closer you can stick to a performance problem, that's where you create content, and that's where you can find the rationale and the logic to create new content. For instance, creating content on topics such as time management. That is a waste of time, very ironically. Yeah, it is a waste of time because there is a lot of content that is already there. However, how do you manage your time in your XYZ organization, in your role as an XYZ call center operator? That content should be created because that will connect the learning to the performance. And so I think those are the two things. You have to repurpose, curate content, and the second is be as close to what the end user wants to do. And so yeah, so that's basically what it is.
And probably align that with your organizational goals as well, right? I mean, how do you think about that? That okay, what are exactly the goals that our company is facing right now in terms of training? Do you think about that before you try to create any new
Yeah, yeah, 100% Tejas. Yeah, 100%. You have to think about, you can't just be creating content, and that is just content creation. You have to be closer to the strategic goals of the organization. And most of the times they are going to be four, right? So it's either you're saving money for the business, you're making money for the business, you're mitigating risk for the business, and you're doing the greater good, which could be the customer's experience, or if you're publicly traded, your shareholders' experience, or generally employee experience. So anything that is beyond those things should not be on the L&D's table or their laptop or whatever. That's what I like. I firmly believe in that. So be close to strategy.
Yeah. I mean, the content strategy that you just talked about, right? It connects more to your technology integration part, because that is really going to reduce your employee time. It's going to increase your productivity, and it's going to more tie up to your organizational goals. So right now, if you look at it, we are right now swimming in a sea of learning technologies out there. SaaS learning technologies are all over the market. So how do you actually create a cohesive learning system, like your own L&D tech stack that is just not about collecting the tools, but is actually about creating some meaningful learning experiences for your employees? How do you tie that up together on your ecosystem?
Yes, that's a great question. So, and I think generally speaking, it always depends. It will always depend on the size of the organization and also uh, the need. So, for instance, larger organizations that are dispersed globally, they will generally have dispersed tech stacks, right? And then they are connected somewhere. But smaller organizations can actually manage those things much more easily. What I also find is that keeping the end user in mind, according to the what are you trying to solve for, what performance problem you're trying to solve for. For instance, let's take an example of a salesperson. If it's a salesperson that you want to train, and the salesperson's point of work is the sales platform where they are, the CRM or whatever that might be, your learning should be whatever you're trying to make them learn and become more better at their job should be closest to the CRM, because that's where they're at, or wherever they are socially. For instance, they could be on their enterprise platform, say MS Teams or whatever it might be. Where can you go and find, so that the salesperson is not losing time jumping from platform to platform, and also losing interest, because the brain only needs learning when they really want that learning, right? Because in the other thing is, I'll go on the phone and find it, right? So why do I have to go to the LXP and find the same answer? Because we all can go on the phone and we all can quickly search for those answers. And so I think for me that is very important, to go and spend as much time as possible to see what they're solving for,
Yeah.
and then try to then go back and engineer the design and engineer the learning intervention, because otherwise it will not show that ROI that you're looking for. Yeah.
I think even when it comes to having like a technology stack of yours, like you have an LXP, you have I
Mhm.
think the integration across platforms is also very important, right? It should be as seamless as possible uh, for even the users to navigate and
Yes.
them like a very smooth experience. I feel sometimes if you have too many tools around, then that could create an issue, right?
You're right. And what happens is it loses interest. Your brain starts getting the fatigue, right? So you don't want to go. You might just find the easiest way to find the solution because that is what you're looking for. I think the other point is also data, right? You want to have a product in your tech stack that is education tech stack that you can actually, capture data from, and you can actually harness that data towards insight. So that is also very important in terms of how the data will flow, because most of enterprises, we are collecting data on how employees are learning, or how they are, if that learning is making a difference in their performance. So we want to have that data point as well. So I think that is another factor also.
Reporting analytics are always going to be important.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is how you look at content and see, okay, what is engaging the employee,
Mhm.
is not, and then you can refine and go ahead with that. So,
Mhm.
I mean, these technology integration challenges are definitely there, but it seems like, uh, it will naturally lead us to the role of AI in learning because that is where most of the automations happen. So now we know that AI is transforming how we are thinking about learning, training, and development. So, how are you leveraging AI right now to create more personalized, adaptive learning experiences that are meeting your individual employee needs? Are you still using AI at your organization? What type of AI are you using, and how is it impacting your L&D?
Yeah, that's, yeah, such a timely question, right? So um I think the way I would answer this is, there are two things when you think of L&D context and the leveraging of AI. There are two things that we are trying to do, broadly speaking. One is augmentation of whatever you're doing. So if you're creating as a designer, if you're creating images, AI can augment that for you. You can create things faster using ChatGPT, or on Midjourney, or whatever the tools are, and you can create a special experience there faster. Those slides will look more on point or whatever. So that's augmentation of what you're doing. Similarly, when you're doing, again, you can also keep put into that stack, podcasting, video editing. You can augment those things. And the second aspect is automating. And how do you use automation capabilities to automate those operational processes and tasks, so that your L&D space or L&D workflow becomes more efficient. So broadly speaking, there are two things happening. Now, the augmentation piece is more controllable for an L&D business unit because it's internal, because we are only training our own instruction designers and they're doing their own. So that's great. The automation part is a little bit more tricky, and that's why you have to mind the gap. The mind the gap is you can't be using a tool in isolation without letting other business units know, because you will fall, or your process will fall in the gap there, because people don't know that you're creating a process without other people doing. So I think for the latter, that is going to be an enterprise level, very collaborative strategy that comes from the senior leaders.
Yeah.
You have to also bring in the governance aspect, the cyber security aspect of AI. How are we going to implement it enterprise wide? And then also comes how L&D is going to play the role in upskilling to bridge that gap, because a lot of us, it's all dispersed right now. What you see around you is in enterprise, There's, depending on your job role, people are using AI tools, and it is not, the baseline is not really constant. There are certain business units who are using a lot of it, and there are certain business units who don't have. Salespeople are not using AI tools as such. So, how do you train a person according to their job role so that they can use the AI tools to better and to drive the business? That's also the question. So I think that's a bigger effort, right? So we cannot solve for that in 6 months. So I think that's essentially what is happening in most enterprises. Yeah.
I mean, definitely there are some skill gaps that definitely need to be filled up, and
Mhm.
AI can definitely help do that. It needs to be a collaborative effort though throughout the organization, as what you're saying. All business units need to be informed about it. So clear communication about AI is going to be very important for
Mhm.
going ahead. Uh, so yeah, your AI approaches are definitely compelling. This naturally brings us down to a very hot trending topic right now in the training industry, and that is, what is the strategic value of these learning initiatives that you have? Like, beyond traditional metrics, how are you telling the story of your training's impact to your management or to your stakeholders? Like, how are you trying to translate those learning outcomes into some
Mhm.
strategic value that the organization will resonate with them,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I'll repeat the same thing that I was mentioning before, that as a learning and development professional, if you are trying to drive an initiative and you are going to get the buy-in, your chances of getting the buy-in from the senior leadership is going to depend on four things. Number one, are you saving money? Number two, are you making money? Number three, are you mitigating risk? And number four, are you increasing the employee experience? If you can do 50% of it, you are in. If you can do even one of the four, I think that would be still compelling. So I think it makes sense to be in conversations with the business leaders on what those problems are, and then go back to the drawing board and find the solutions for it, and not do the other way around where, hey, we created this, now we are going to present it, and now you have to get the buy-in. So I think that dialogue has to be in the right direction. It cannot be coming from us. It has to come from the business problem to solve. Yeah.
I mean, generally, you have to first think about the impact that you're going to create. Okay, what numbers do you need to achieve in order to
Yes.
buy in, and then probably form your strategy and then go ahead. But
Mm-hmm.
training ROI is very important right now for L&D leaders, and I guess it's always been, but right now it's more like you have to really get a buy-in from the management in order to create an overall strategy for your organizational goals. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, very important, those 4 points for every leader right now watching this. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Finally, as we wrap up, Soumya, one key piece of advice that you can give to those who are beginners right now into L&D industry, because as you know, most of the people get into L&D rather than L&D choosing them.
Mm-hmm.
So if they are new to the industry, how do you think they should navigate uh, this organizational learning piece, and how they should look at their careers overall?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, thanks for asking that question. It resonates a lot with my journey, and so that's why I wanted to share my 2 cents on it. So essentially, I think anybody who is coming into L&D space as a transition and transitioning from another career space, you have to, that's great, you're here. You're welcome, you're here. Whatever role you're in, that's great. I would suggest to everybody who's listening to this is to spend your next 9 months or a year understanding the business. If you're working in an organization, you already have the skill set for designing, and you already have the skill set for the L&D aspect. You should be investing in understanding your audience's aspect. your audience's context. How does the business work? Who is the producer? Who are the people who are going to require most attention in this organization? And it's generally the producer. And so you should be spending more time there. And again, because we are in the L&D space, it is a given that you have to be responsible for your own development, because organizations will provide you coaching and training, but they all have to be in context for the business problems. So if you need upskilling on your side, you should continuously be learning and continuously be investing in whatever way, getting those continuing, the education done, certifications done, reading, going to conferences, all those things are a part of this whole package. And so I think, and that will go on. So your education is your responsibility, and your understanding of the business is your responsibility as well. So I think that's essentially what I would advise to anyone who is joining, or anybody who is coming or considering being in the L&D space, especially in the corporate sector. Yeah.
That's fantastic advice. I mean, as L&D professionals anyway, they will have to keep on continuously learning, because that is
Yeah.
what they're teaching.
That's what they're supposed to do. Yes.
And yeah, I mean, keep learning, going to conferences, reading on materials, on several resources that you have, like this training industry, but I'm very sure even you contribute to training industry. That is where I
Yes.
read your articles as well.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely watch out for this advice to those starting out in the L&D space. And that brings us to the end of another enlightening episode of Training Transformers. Really appreciate you, Somya, for sharing your very valuable insights and experiences with us today in your L&D space. To our viewers, if you have found value in today's discussion, please make sure to follow us for more conversations with training leaders who are shaping the future of workplace learning. You can find additional resources and information about today's topic on the Kitabu website. That's kitabu.com. Join us next time as we continue to explore the transformative power of modern learning and development. Until then, keep innovating and transforming your training. This is Tejas, and this has been Training Transformers.